Yeah.
And we're back.
Welcome to No Direction, the Pathfinder News, Reviews, and Interviews podcast. I'm Ryan Costello.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
We are a little over a week from the end of PaizoCon 2018, which was once again a monumental. It's all of those things. PaizoCon is always wonderful, and we are going to be talking about some of the great things that happened. Param and I very much Cylon again?
Yep. Very much. Welcome to Live Productions.
That's good, because I keep screwing up my intros.
Yeah. Welcome to Live Productions, Stephen.
This is why I don't do live.
Yeah. Like, we edit all this nonsense out. But
Oh, I know.
Oh, my goodness.
I am very familiar.
All right. So, Ryan, why don't you just hang up and you come back?
All right. Bye.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I'm back, and I have a plan.
You have a plan?
Because I'm a Cylon.
Oh.
It's a reference to a TV show about Cylons.
Right.
I'm very clever.
Man with a plan.
How do I sound?
You sound okay for now.
That's not a confident answer, but
because I'm not confident.
All right.
All right. Let's try this again. Logo splash.
All right.
And we're back.
Welcome to No Direction, the Pathfinder News, Reviews, and Interviews podcast. I'm Ryan Costello.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
It's been a couple of weeks since PaizoCon, and PaizoCon 2018 was once again a momentous and monumental, all of those things occasion. And so we are going to be talking about it. We're going to be talking about the news, and we are joined by someone who, in more ways than one, made PaizoCon 2018 coverage possible. Roll for Combat's Stephen Glicker.
Hello, everyone. Hi.
Welcome
Thanks
to
for
the show,
having
Stephen.
me. Yes.
Thank you for all you've done for us in the last month.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, I've been a big fan of this show for a long time, and any way I could help you guys out. And when I saw you were having issues, I jumped in and thought, why not? You guys do a great show, and I really wanted to, pay you guys back for all the years of entertainment you gave me.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate that, but honestly, you've probably done more for this show in the last month than most people have done in its entire run.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Thanks for that.
If any of you remember our recent outage that was unplanned and unannounced, Stephen saved us from that outage because our hosting platform, which we will not mention so that we do not expose ourselves to litigation, did not want to seem to help us at all.
Yes, and in fact, they still haven't got back to me to tell me that the site's back up and running. So if Stephen didn't step in, who knows if the site would even be back.
Right.
I can tell you the answer. It would not be.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, that's actually why I jumped in, because I've been down this road. I mean, I've been building websites professionally for 27 years. So as soon as I heard through, was it Facebook, that you guys were having issues, I contacted you guys right away because I knew exactly how bad using these companies is unless you know someone. So I wanted to help out right away. So,
yeah. And it's one of those situations, it has been completely smooth for a decade. But this was one screw up that they just let keep getting worse, and it was very frustrating, and we felt powerless. So you came in and you were like a suit of Iron Man armor that we donned, and you gave us all the power we needed. Thank you.
Yes, no problem.
But
it was, I know it was a nightmare for you, but it was weird. Our guys actually enjoyed it because they like challenges. So it was like, it was actually fun. I know you hate to hear that. You guys are like dying, and my guys are like, "Ooh, this is fun to like fix a website." It was a weird experience, but everyone enjoyed.
Welcome.
As a programmer, I don't like that we were in a situation that 27-year-old veterans viewed as a challenge.
True. It was a small challenge. It was a challenge in the sense that we had to get, 940 shows off a server that was giving us 30K a second.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that really was the challenge, was trying to get 10 years or so worth of shows off a 300 baud modem connection. So that was the challenge.
But Stephen does not join us today merely as our saint and savior. He is here because he went to PaizoCon and had an awesome time, and you host your own podcast that our listeners might be interested in.
Yes, we host the Roll for Combat actual play podcast, where we are doing, like so many others, we are doing Dead Sons, but something else we've been doing, which a lot of people seem to be very interested in, is we started to do Starfinder Society. We ran 1-10, which was kind of a nice horror episode, which I know Param liked quite a bit, and we are actually starting tomorrow 1-4 with Lauren from Your Adventurous. She is joining us as well. And she is made a very interesting. She made. I'll give a little bit of a spoiler. She made a Yoshi technomancer that has no hair. So it's actually a hairless mouse. So again, it's pretty creative. She did a really creative build, and I spoke to her a bit. And I think she might go out in a blaze of glory, but it's going to be a beautiful blaze of glory. So it should be fun.
So she'll be one of the players.
Yeah, sorry. So she's the player. I always run it, and we do it online. And the nice thing about the Starfinder Societies is that they're quick. You know, you can jump in, you can listen to them for, it's like 4 or 5 episodes, say 5 hours, and then you're done, because that's what they're built for. And the nice thing is we're rotating different squads in. So last time we had Jason Keeley from Paizo. This time we have Lauren and a friend of mine, Rebecca. She's going to be playing. So we're always going to have new people going in, and I know a lot of the Paizo staff, when I was at PaizoCon, were giving me their cards because now they want to play too. So this is going to get interesting. And we're also going to eventually go into Pathfinder, especially the Pathfinder 2e stuff. So right now, we're doing both at the same time. And also, it's really nice for our players because it gives them an opportunity to dip their toes into other character classes. Because one of the big problems when you play, and you guys are going to find this out on Adventurous, when you play a long campaign like Adventure Path, you get bored. I mean, as much fun and as great as the story is, playing the same character for 2 or 3 years can get a little stale. So this is a way for them to try out other classes and then almost take a break and then jump back in, and then they feel fresh. So it's really good.
Something that often happens when I'm running through adventure paths is that someone or a couple of people in the group will start getting a little fatigue, and they'll be like, after this book, can we take a break? And everyone will be like, sure, we can change things up. But then usually the books end on such a high that it's like, we don't want to take a break now. Let's move on to the next thing. Like, we just hit a major milestone and we feel like major heroes. And repeat for 2 or 3 more books.
Yeah, we actually, I'm forcing them. We actually force them to take breaks. Like right now, John's moving, and so he can't play for 2 weeks. So we're like, this is a perfect opportunity. And of course, in summer vacation, it's hard to coordinate with 5 people. So if someone's going to take a vacation, we can get a society game in 2 weeks. So we can jump in, do this for 2 weeks, and then when they come back from vacation or moving or whatever, we can just jump right back in. So it's good. It actually, we started it out as an experiment. And the other nice thing is, I'm the GM. I like it that I can kill off their characters and no one really cares. They just make new ones. I mean, it's society. I don't feel guilty at all. And Param knows they came damn close to dying in 1-10. Very, very close.
Yeah, I'm surprised anybody walked away from your 1-10 Society Adventures. That's the Half-Alive Streets, right?
Yes.
Yeah. No, they should all be dead. They out of shame, just pure shame, would be enough.
They got a lot of lucky rolls. There was a double crit that saved their life. They were about to get TPK'd and then literally did double attacks, double crit, and killed the main boss that was 2 levels higher than them. And then at the end, same thing. They just got a lot of crits at the best time. But the best part about it was Jason Keeley never, ever rolled higher than a 1 on damage. So whenever we roll a 1 from now on, we call it a Keeley. So spread that out to all of your games out there. Whenever you roll a 1, say, Keeley!
Can that just be on damage? Because when I roll a 1 on D20, it's called rolling a Jeff around here.
Oh, really? It's only on damage, because he would hit. He hit all the time, but he only got 1s on the damage. So, and he kind of owned it after a while, so it was pretty funny.
So the reason I was surprised that Lauren was a player, or not surprised, but I had to inquire, is because early on you were bringing in special guests to play as NPCs, which I thought was a really intriguing concept.
Yeah, so on the Roll for Combat, I've done this before with my own game. When we've run adventure paths, so real quick history, we only run adventure paths, and I only run pre-written modules, and we started with Age of Worms, and we've gone from there. So, we actually toyed around with podcasts for a long time. I used to do Gaming Steve, which was a very popular video game podcast way like 15 years ago. Stopped that, and so I kind of had it in my blood, and then I eventually talked everyone into doing it. And what I would do to mix things up is a lot of my friends wanted to play, so I would bring them in as NPCs. And I really enjoy it because I don't know what's going to happen, and it's fun as a GM. It's very challenging because I basically give them a script. It's like free-form, Pathfinder. It's it's almost like improv, even for you, because I just say, okay, this is kind of what I want you to do, but you guys figure it out. And in fact, on Dead Sons, we had Rob Tramarco and Jason Keeley played two detectives in two of the episodes, and I had no idea what they were going to do, and there was supposed to be a big fight, and they intimidated the bad guys so bad and shook them down that there was no fight, and I didn't plan for that at all. And then also John Compton was in an episode, and he played two goblins, and then Jason McDonald plays Tuttle and Cheddar is a drone, and the drone blew up. It was a combat. He blew up. He was dead. And then John Compton's like, you want me to rebuild them? The goblins will rebuild him, and I'm going to make him half goblin. Now, we were like, okay, this is, he just came up with it, and then he built a character sheet for Cheddar and sent it to us. He built a 5-page character sheet for Cheddar that has multiple tables for when it gets critted. There's a thing called the button. If you press the button, something random happens. And, I mean, all of this is stuff I didn't expect. And now, of course, he's the most popular person on the show. Cheddar is like half goblin, half, drone. So none of this was planned. And that's why I really like I try to do it as much as possible.
And then as a GM, how do you react when one of your NPCs goes off script?
It's not too bad. I'll tell you a trade secret is I do have Facebook chat open, so I am chatting with them a little bit. So I do give them a little bit of hints like what to do and where to go so that they don't go too off script. So that's really how I do it. And they're all pros. I'm not bringing in someone who's been doing this for a day or two. I've been bringing people. Every one of these are, they're either Paizo employees or someone who's been playing for 15, 20 years, so they know how to play. I would definitely not do this with someone who was very new, because they would probably either go off script, not on purpose, but maybe accidentally, or maybe think, oh, let's do something fun and throw a grenade here and see what happens. That's not part of the plan. It's no, you're really there to mix it up and, add a new dimension to the game, not just for me, but for the characters too, so that they see something new that I can't bring to the game. And it's worked really well. It's hard to manage, especially online, but when it works, it really works.
Now, finally, I mentioned that in more ways than one, you were responsible for our PaizoCon coverage. The main one, and this is the original reason that we were in touch, is that you offered to sponsor the seminar coverage.
Yes, I've been talking to Param online for quite a while, just being friendly, and I had a contest where we brought a whole bunch of people out to PaizoCon, and I actually brought a lot of people. I brought all of my crew. I brought the Order of the Amber Die out, and I wanted Param. Param's never been there. I went last year for the very first time because I was really interested in Starfinder, so I went to check out Starfinder, see what it was all about. And I was talking to Param, and I was stunned that you weren't going to go. And he was like, you know what, of all the ones I want to go to, this is the one because it's Pathfinder 2e, and it's going to be a really big one. And I felt like, look, let's work this out. If we can do a deal, I'll fly you out and put you up, and everyone wins. You get to go. I'm happy. You're happy. You get to see all your friends, meet us. And, there really was no losers. There was maybe it costs a little bit of money, but in my mind, it's well spent. If everyone's happy and everyone has memories for a lifetime, I think it's money very well spent.
And unbeknownst to you, you also sponsored my room when
No,
the
really?
person I was supposed to be staying with.
Oh my gosh.
Just
Yeah,
what
Ryan
happened?
got
exactly what
catfished.
happened. I don't think it was intentional. I do believe he was there at the con somewhere, but my vague plans involved meeting up with someone that was arriving a few hours before me, but then getting into a game, and so we were going to coordinate, but we were not connected on Facebook. I gave him my phone number, but he never gave me his, and he was not replying to my PMs on the PaizoCon the Paizo message boards. So until 8 or 9 p.m. on Thursday night, I did not know where I was sleeping.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I sponsored your con as well. So everybody wins. I pretty
Right.
much flew out half of the staff, it seems like. But you know what? It's such a good con. I said it on my podcast, like back in the day, like in the 80s and 90s, when you used to go to these conventions. They were really, really small in these hotels, and there was a couple hundred people at most, and everything was small and intimate, and you sort of knew everyone, and that was a con. And now, those type of cons are pretty rare. Now they're all monstrosities, which are fun, but they're sort of becoming, I don't know, Disney-fied in a way. They're very much the same in a lot of ways, and they get a little impersonal. And, you can go to a con. I've been to Gen Con too many times where I have a dozen friends there and I never see them once the whole time I'm there. And Gen Con, PaizoCon's really small. It's really intimate. You can talk to everyone and see everyone, and it's just a lot of fun. It's one of my favorite cons, and I've just felt that I knew my guys would enjoy it. I thought Param would enjoy it. The Order guys, I felt really bad. They were supposed to be there last year, but there was horrible weather in New York, and all the flights were canceled, so they never made it. So I talked to them, and we worked out something so that they can go, and then I even shared my session with them. I just felt like, we're all gamers here, and, just everyone, you have more fun when you know other people at the con. So the more people I brought, almost selfishly, I'm like, I went last year by myself and I knew a couple of people, but this way I'm like, I'm going to bring all my friends with me, and then we're all going to game together and all have a good time, and that's exactly what happened. So
Sweet.
Well, also the idea of a single topic convention is something that's just gone away, because there are still some of those small local gaming cons, but it tends to just be a whole bunch of different gamers, and you'll go to your section. So like when I go to Can Games in Ottawa, there's a couple of hundred people at the con, but there's about 20 of us that are there for Pathfinder. Whereas PaizoCon, there were 800 people this year, and they were all there for Pathfinder, Starfinder. Like, they were all there for a small umbrella of similar topics.
yeah, that's my favorite part about the con, is that you're all there for one thing. And obviously, if you don't really like Paizo products, you probably shouldn't be there. But it's also just fun that, like, everyone there, you can talk at the highest level of incredibly geeky things that you do in Pathfinder or Starfinder about your 14th level Blood Rager who has this extremely weird build, and 5 people will be like, oh yeah, I've done that. In fact, mine's way crazier. It's just awesome. Everyone there speaks the same secret language, and you just don't see that. Like at Gen Con, as much as I love Gen Con, it's just, some people are there for the board gaming. Some people are there for the miniatures. Some people are there for the kids' activities. It's a big mishmash. So I like how this is a single convention dedicated to one thing and one thing only. And it's not so small that it feels sad in a way. It's big. It's a big con, and there's a lot going on, and you won't be able to see everything and do everything, which is also why I like you guys record everything, because it's the only way I can actually listen to the talks afterwards. So
Yeah, every PaizoCon I've gone to has had like a different purpose. So sometimes I go with a very gaming-focused con. Sometimes it's like, this is just a networking con. I want to, spread. I want more people to know about No Direction. I want to get more writing assignments. This year was really just a socializing con, and it can be any of those things, but it's always a Pathfinder con. And that is also one of the reasons that we record the seminars, because one of my first PaizoCons was a very seminar-heavy con, and I happened to have a recorder, and, I would sheepishly go up to people like, is it okay if I record this? And everyone's like, yeah, sure. And that's just kind of snowballed into people now expect us. Like, if we just don't go next year, I don't know what kind of reaction we would get.
Well, see, now you're obligated to go forever. And Gen
It's
Con,
an
too.
obligation I am more than happy to fulfill.
No, it's the seminars are so good. I mean, I was listening. I mean, I myself was listening to the. You only put up four so far, and I listened to all four because I missed a lot of them. And
Mhm.
the reason I missed them is because I knew that No Direction was going to be putting them up.
Mhm.
So I was thinking in the back of my head, I don't need to go to the seminar because I can listen to it in a few weeks. So in a weird way, yeah, you directly contribute to me gaming more. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. The other thing is that, like, when we were planning this episode, because I didn't make it onto last week's Out of Character that Param did with Alex, where they talked about PaizoCon, and I was like, oh, are we going to have run out of PaizoCon Steam by this week? But because I've been, like, completely immersed in editing these seminars for the last 4 or 5 days, it's like PaizoCon never ended for me. And it probably won't until around Gen Con.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
you mentioned there only being 4 up. I mean, they're 4 up because that is the amount of editing that Ryan can do and still stay sane. We once, even this year, I talked about, hey Ryan, why don't we do something radical and just put all the episodes up at once? And then Ryan stared at me like I was the devil incarnate.
I'm actually
That was my processing face. It was like, how?
I'm actually impressed you put them up so fast. I mean, that's not a dig at you. If you're doing 2 a day, I mean, trust me, I know what it's like to edit these things, especially room recordings, because there's just so much going on in the room, and it's hard to balance them. And then if people are asking questions, you got to listen to it. I mean, 1 hour talk could easily be 4 or 6 hours of editing, easily.
Mhm.
And you're putting up 2 talks. I mean, I guess you don't have a job or something. So
I do have a job and a family. I've edited 11 of
Oh my
the
God.
seminars so far. We're only putting them up 2 a day, just so, like, because tonight I'm not going to be editing any, and
Right.
the ones that are going up tomorrow are already edited as a result. And I really don't have to do anything until this weekend if I really don't want to, but I probably will.
Yeah.
Wow. I need to give you my show. You can edit my show.
Nah.
No. No.
You're the pro, man. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, also it's probably down to a science at this point. You've been doing it so long. You know all the tips and tricks. You get it done pretty quick.
Yeah, it is, and I've learned to record more efficiently. So every chance I get, I go in and stop the recorder and then start a new one in the seminar room, so I don't have to start, or I don't have to find the beginning end points of the seminars. And actually, I was up quite late last night because I had a 3-hour chunk in one of the rooms, and it was also the room that had the worst audio, and so it was a lot of parsing stuff out because it was Adam Daigle. Actually, a whole bunch of people do back-to-back seminars where one of them is they conceive a monster, and then the second one is they actually apply the rules. And so that one's really interactive, and there's a lot of dead space because there's an artist that is drawing the ideas that they're coming up with. Actually, it was the artist guest of honor, whose name I don't know off by heart, but I do have access to, Taylor Fisher.
Yes.
So she was in the room drawing the monsters. And so I look at the audio, and usually I can tell when there's a pause or when it's like, okay, that's applause, and then that's dead space, so cut there. But because this was like, let's take some suggestions, and then let's all process them, that one was really hard to edit.
I actually heard that was an excellent panel. John Stats went to that, and he said it was fantastic. So.
That's one I should do live, because even though, like, I get all of this audio and I could experience most of these seminars anytime I want, that's one that it feels like it's a different experience when you're actually in the room.
Yeah, well, especially because it's a creative process. So, like, they're building something on the fly, and then she's illustrating it. It's afterwards we were talking to her about it, and she, it's just like you're all like in a rush. It's like playing a game live. It's like you're just in the moment. So.
On, I think, Sunday, I did have a chance to speak with her, and she was in between commissions, or she was just taking a lunch and then was getting back to commissions, and it started to get to be a very engaging conversation. She seems like a very interesting person, but I also knew that I was interrupting her lunch, so I had to stop myself. And we have not had an artist on the podcast yet because I've traditionally said I don't know how to talk to artists, but I definitely know how to talk to her. So I don't know what her schedule is like, but I do intend to talk to. And I should, there we go, Taylor. I do intend to get Taylor on the podcast in the near future.
You should definitely. I spoke to her, John and I spoke to her at the end of PaizoCon for about half an hour because she does a lot of video game art as well. So
Nice.
she, she's done a little bit of everything. She does obviously fantasy, science fiction, video game. She's very, very down to earth. I mean, yeah, we were talking her ear off, so.
Corin Flies in chat says, Taylor is building a tiny house. Okay. Does she only need a tiny house? Anyway, this has been fun, but we've been talking for almost half an hour about seminars and whatnot, and we haven't actually talked about PaizoCon. And someone that I really want to hear talk about PaizoCon is the person who went to his first PaizoCon, someone that I have wanted to see at a PaizoCon for years now. Param, thoughts on PaizoCon?
Well, PaizoCon was a very unique experience for me for several reasons. One of which was it was a really chill convention. There was not a lot of stress at the convention, though I do imagine that the blue shirts were stressing and overworked and about to pass out. But for me, as a guest, it was super stress-free. And it was intimate, like Stephen was saying. And I'm sorry, my dog seems to have gone insane. And I don't know why. But it was super stress-free. And all of that focus on the reason I go to Gen Con anyway. It was just like, oh, it's like all the good parts of Gen Con minus all the crap about Gen Con I don't want. And
I did like your comment on the first day, not even the first day, on the Thursday, so before the con officially started. You were like, it's a very huggy convention.
Well, that's because everybody was literally hugging me, and I'm all for that. But it's like, oh, there's some person that I really know online and we've never met face-to-face, an incoming hug, and that is great. That is excellent. And part of it was also unique for us because there's very few places on Earth that we get to feel any little bit of celebrity and knowledge. So just meeting a lot of fans and just like being super friendly and everybody knowing you and you knowing everybody, it just is a very different experience than the sea of unwashed masses that is Gen Con or Origins or Dragon Con.
How did you react when people recognized you?
Well, I'm used to it now because Gen Cons. The first time it happened at Gen Con, it freaked me out. I was like, wait, people actually watch the show? Like, what? And so, and now it's. I definitely recognized a lot more at PaizoCon, obviously, but I'm just glad to meet fans, glad to meet people we've worked with and interviewed, and just sort of relaxing in a place that we didn't intentionally set up to be recorded live before thousands of people. But then we record half the stuff and deliver it to people, so maybe that's not the best analogy.
Was it everything you thought it was going to be?
Absolutely.
I was telling you
oh my
bit
gosh
beforehand.
It was better. I expected a really cool, like, what I described it to Ryan is because my schedule looked really weird in parse when you actually examined what I signed up for. It's like I never did less and got more out of a convention than I did at PaizoCon because I did a bit of gaming, and then I had a bunch of panels, and some of which I didn't even go to because it was just sort of just like, and here I'm going to spend the next 3 hours hanging out at a bar with this group of fans and Paizo employees and Ryan, and just sort of veg out and talk about the secrets of the universe.
Yeah, that was a rare opportunity for us because we rarely get to hang out. Like, we chat more than most people in my life, or at least on a more regular basis, and yet really we've been in person together for maybe hours in total before this weekend. And now we were with each other more than we were apart, I feel like.
Well, especially if you're sharing the same room.
Yes, that helped.
Those hours count. You know, yeah, same thing for us. Like, we used to all live, the Roll for Combat guys, we used to all live in Manhattan, and that's how we started gaming, and we used to just game at someone's place. And then over the years, we've spread out. We're literally across the entire country. So this was the first time we were all together in one location in 15 years. And we've we've been together, like, there's 5 of us, so maybe like 2 or 3 or even 4 of us, but never all 5 of us. And if you semi-count, there's like the 6th is Rob Tamarco and the 7th is Jason Keeley, because they've been on the show so much. So we were all together. And they used to live in, well, Rob still lives in New York, but Jason used to live in New York City, and we actually knew him back then too. So all 7 of us were in the same place at once, and that was basically because of PaizoCon. So it was, it's nice. It's unique that You guys can all sit there and relax. And unlike Gen Con, if you say, "Oh my God, I got something that's across the way," you can be there in 2 minutes. You don't have to literally get an Uber to get to your other talk. It's everything's small and intimate. It's great.
You can go back to your room in the middle of a game and be back in time, like if you take a 5-minute break.
Yes. You can literally be in the middle of combat, get up, run to your room, go get a soda, come back, and you'll be like, "It's your turn." I'm like, "Yes, thank you." It's nice.
Corin Flies in chat asks you, Param, what was the most surprising thing about PaizoCon for you?
The most surprising thing about PaizoCon for me was probably the hotel itself. It was weird. Like it was like some tiki lodge on stilts with like way too comfortable furniture, which we'll talk about later. And evidently I'm going to have to fight Stephen for it later too.
What?
You said you threatened to take it.
Take what? Oh, the couch.
Yes. No. We will defend that couch.
I forgot about the couch.
This is a story you're not apprised of. And
Clearly.
Yeah. And honestly, just the amount of access, and not just for us, but like the everybody was super available. Everybody was super open and talking about just about everything you wanted to chat with. Like at Gen Con, I get to speak with Paizo staff a lot, but they're very busy people, so it's like little 10-minute conversations and stuff. But just about any fan could just walk up to like one of their favorite writers and just chat them up for 20 minutes if they wanted to. And I saw that happening again and again, just like little clutches of people. And that's just not something you can do at major conventions or even smaller conventions that they're away from, because that's all, they're super busy people. And it's like the point of PaizoCon is to have that level of contact, have that level of access.
And what I like, if I'm eavesdropping on a conversation and just kind of spying on an interaction, you'll often see it'll start with someone being like, "I am such a fan of yours," or "We played in this adventure you wrote," or whatever. And then very quickly it'll just become a couple of gamers sharing experiences, swapping stories, and just it starts like one person is on a much higher status level, and then they like meet in the middle very quickly. And it's comforting, it's nice. PaizoCon's pleasant.
Yes. It's the most pleasant con you could ever go to. As you said, Param, I love Gen Con and all the other cons, but man, they're stressful. They're very stressful, because just like getting from your hotel room to the floor can take 30 minutes. I mean, it's ridiculous. And they've gotten so big, they're a victim of their own success, and they're all like that now. And I love them, but there's something special about PaizoCon. It's so small and intimate, and you just don't feel any stress. You can relax, you can hang out with people, you can have beers. Everyone's very friendly. Like, we were just sitting there talking, and some random players, I don't know who they were, they're like, "Hey, can we sit down?" I'm like, "Sure," and we're just talking about anything, and I don't know who these guys are, and everyone's friendly. It's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. One plan that I've never executed or even talked about in public, so I'll probably now have to do it, but one PaizoCon plan I've always had is to just walk around with enough supplies that if somebody walks up to me and says, "Let's game," I just lay it out and we can just start gaming. And I will just like either have one long adventure going through PaizoCon that like we continue even with brand new players and I'm the only one that really has any idea of what's going on, or something along those lines. But definitely the idea that if no matter where I am, if we're in the middle of something and somebody says, "Let's game," you get at least like 5 minutes of my time and we roll some dice.
That actually is a great idea. Let's do that next year.
All right, we'll get some buttons and say, just like, tell me if you want a game.
That's a good idea. There was something similar in Gen Con where they had every room of a dungeon was a 10-foot by 10-foot room. And it was like Cube, and you just walk in, and you either just died horribly or there was a puzzle or something, and they just had hundreds of these rooms, and you played until you died. So people would jump in, play, and then see how many rooms you get, and then they leave. And it just went on for the entire Gen Con from beginning to end 24/7. So you can kind of do something like that, like see who can survive the longest. Mm-hmm. Something like that.
But we have to make sure that Ryan's shirt is the battle grid, and we use the buttons have to have pins so that you have to stab Ryan every time you move.
And then you see the blood.
You're right.
Yes, and then the blood will stain the shirt, so you can see who died. Every time someone dies, you just stab them really hard with a pin.
And then we can raffle off the shirt with Ryan blood for charity.
There you go.
This is such a roller coaster. It's like, this was a nice, pleasant idea. What do you guys? Why is it so much stabbing all of a sudden? And then you bring in charity, and I'm like, I guess I'm getting stabbed.
Well, I'm listening to too much of Steven's
the
podcast
best
when
part
I'm thinking about
wait, I
stabbing
didn't
them.
tell you the best part. The best part is we're gonna have a different shirt for every day.
Oh, yes.
Corin Flies wants to know, Stephen, is that the familiar folio art original behind you? I'm curious about that as well.
Yes, it is.
Wow.
It is my absolute favorite. Yes, at Gen Con they have an artist alley, and I collect Paizo art, and I only get originals. And I saw this, and this is my favorite art of all time, so I bought it. And I actually just redid my office. Otherwise, it's usually hanging up like right over here. So I have it on my desk. And I also thought you guys would enjoy it. I have a couple of pieces here, but yes, it's the original under glass, and it is insane. It's done in watercolors, and it's absolutely beautiful. I have a couple of crazy things. I also have this thing. If you guys are really into geekiness, it's the Stormbringer sword. I like signed up for, I don't know, someone sent this to me, but it's like my favorite sword of all time. So so I just sort of have this. My kids like to hit each other with it because it's made out of foam. So
I was going to say.
Yeah.
All right, well, since we're talking about what's going on behind you, you've also got, looks like an original piece of art on the floor over your other shoulder.
Oh, yeah. So hold on. I'm going to take off my mic for a second.
All right. So while he's taking off his mic. Oh, no, the mic's back on. That was quick.
Yeah. So Chris Seaman, he actually does a ton of original art for Paizo. This is my favorite piece of interior art, which is the Grim Reaper. And he had this as a doodle. And I bought it. It actually wasn't even that expensive. And he framed it for me and everything. And at the end of this year's PaizoCon banquet, they showed this artwork, if you remember, as the Sierra 21 creature for Pathfinder 2E. And I saw that. I'm like, I got that. That's my original. I have it. I have the original. I showed Eric Mona, too. He's like, you got it, damn it. Because they have all I've been trying to get Wayne Reynolds' work, but he only sells it to Paizo. So
Really?
I told Eric I might trade him. I got a ton of other artwork, so maybe we can work out a trade one day, and maybe we'll see if he holds me up for it. But yeah, Eric, Chris Seaman does a ton of Paizo work, and I have a standing order for him that whenever he does something, just to contact me, because I usually buy it. So
Cool.
You've got
Now,
good
you
taste.
called that a doodle? I'm afraid you're going to have to justify. What do you mean? Why? How is that a doodle?
Oh, in the sense that, like, it's not a doodle. It's a single solitary piece that's just on a whiteboard, as opposed to, like, I have some more upstairs, like a full color artwork, like a cover of a book or a magic card. So, like, this is just, it's not a doodle, but he actually has a bin. If you go to Gen Con, he literally has a bin where it's just filled with pieces, and you can just flip through it like comic books. And it was just in there. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is just sitting in there? Yeah, I'll take it, thank you. And there was a few more. I was like, all the Paizo stuff, I just took it all out. I'm like, I'll take all of these. No, because they don't, because these are just on white backgrounds. And if you look, here, I'm just going to do it again. Like, if you look really closely, it's kind of cool. You can see, like, all the, I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but you can actually see, like, there's all the sketches, and he has, like, the pencil marks and the whiteout on it. Like, this is actually, there's a ton of, like, mistakes, if you will, they make, and then they take it out in post when they digitize it, as opposed to, like, this, which is perfect. Like, there's, like, this is exactly what it looks like. There's no difference between this and the cover. So that's what I meant, like, he's not a doodle, but that, you know, he kind of draws these very quick, and he doesn't really clean them up that much.
So we've been talking about a lot of things. We haven't talked about any gaming that we did.
Okay.
What's that?
Stephen, you and I were in a game. We played a 2E game on Friday night, run by Luis, and it was the adventure path you mentioned earlier, the Age of Worms. He adapted it to 2nd edition. So, as someone who has played that adventure path before, seems like intimately familiar with it, it's a very important adventure path to you. What were your thoughts on the 2E adaptation of it?
I loved it. I was stunned how fast it went. I've played that. I know that's my favorite. It's the Karen Crown. It's my favorite low-level adventure. I've said that many times. It's been voted by many people as one of the best low-level adventures ever written. It was by Eric Mona. It's just really well done, and Louise did a fantastic job. We got pretty far. I was actually surprised how far we got, and I think a lot of that was the smoothness of the 2E combat and how quick and efficient it was. I even told Eric Mona. He didn't know he was doing it. I spoke to Eric later and told him, "Oh, we did Carrying Crown." He's like, "Really?" It's like, "How far did you get?" I'm like, "We
Age
got
of Worms, not Carrying Crown.
Oh, not Carrying Crown, right? Sorry. Yes, you're right. Age of Worms and the Whispering Carn. That's why it's called the Whispering Carn. Yeah, sorry, get them confused. And then he's like, "Oh, how far did you get?" I'm like, "Oh, we found the lantern, and we like opened up the next area." He's like, "Really?" He's like, "Oh, that's amazing." So even he was surprised just how streamlined the combat was and how fast it was. And we did. How many encounters? How long was that? I forgot how long it was, but we did a lot of encounters, if you remember. It was quite a number of rooms, like a good 10, 11 rooms or something.
Yeah.
And then
so
we got to
it
see
was a
level
4-hour
two.
slot, and I know
Yeah.
we fought a swarm, we fought some animals, we had an underwater combat. So not just a lot of combats, but a lot of traditionally complicated combats.
Yeah, that's actually why it's such a good module, is that it actually has, in the very beginning, some of the most complex rules. Because, right, first you fight wolves that have trip attacks, which he included. Then you fight a swarm, which is, well, it's a swarm and they're a pain. Then you have areas of darkness, and you have underwater combat. And it's like the three nastiest things are thrown at you right away is like trip and CRBs, swarms, and underwater, and it went really smoothly.
I remember there was some
I was
poison
stunned.
too early on, right?
Yeah, and there's poison in there, right? Because the swarms can poison you. There's spiders. I mean, it was impressive. I mean, I really was impressed with 2E. Again, I've been playing a lot of Starfinder. I've been played about 60 sessions of Starfinder since it came out. So I wasn't too surprised that they streamlined it because Starfinder is very streamlined. But it was more like a nice surprise to see how well they implemented it in 2E. And what I really, really liked, I mean, I don't know how much we're getting into this right now, is that the fighter, even though you played the fighter, it's that you got to do a lot of things at even first and second level. And that I feel is the biggest problem with 3.5 and Pathfinder is that a lot of these melee classes get really kind of rote and boring as you level up because it's like, oh, I can fight, and now I can fight, and I can fight. And that's it. And that's why everyone likes the casters, and because you have so many options. And so now, like the caster definitely still had a lot of options, but they even had more options because you can cast your spells differently to get different effects. And then the fighters had all these different stances and shields and different types of attacks. And it was nice. There was a lot of decisions that had to be made rather than I walk up and I swing my sword and now I'm done. It was good.
Yeah, the decisions is what really impressed me because they were all very fighter-specific decisions. So I knew from the playtest and from different documents that we've been reading that the fighter would have a reaction that he could put up his shield. What I did not realize is that there's actually multiple levels of this. You can either put up the shield and just raise your AC in general, and then you have a certain kind of reaction that I believe gives you damage reduction. Or as a reaction, if you didn't put up your shield on your turn, your reaction is just putting up the shield. So it's like you've got this shield, and it is a major part of your decisions. Whereas in first edition, and basically the game up until now, a decision is just a shield is just a thing that takes up a hand slot and gives you a static bonus to AC. So this was like the most dynamic shield I have ever played with, and every decision felt appropriate to what shields should do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then even the spell, I mean, I played the wizard, and you had the spell shield, which would last one round, and then it would give you a shield, which I think took like 5 points of damage. So that was nice because if you find yourself in a bad situation as a wizard, usually your only reaction is full defense or run away, and that's it. So here you could actually say, oh, you know what? I cast shield, and if I get hit, I could actually take a little bit of damage. So it felt like, I could see that extending to other classes. Mm-hmm. It was good. I could feel that the influence of other games and lots of testing and thinking about how to build the system is they wanted to add a lot of decisions to be made by all classes and to make them all feel appropriate for those classes. And if they manage to pull that off, this thing will be a grand slam.
Well, some of the other decisions I had to make, like traditionally, the higher level you go or the more attacks you get with a fighter, the more you just want to stop. You want to get into his position and just stop. Whereas this was a very mobile fighter. But if I saw that, I could just do a single move and then make 2 attacks, that was like an enticing thing. So instead of constantly trying to get into the best position, I had to choose between best position or the most convenient position to then get a second attack. Like there was never a turn that I did not feel like I got to contribute to the combat and got to make an active decision that contributed to how I was contributing to the combat.
Yeah, no, it really felt dynamic. It felt like you would change what you were doing depending upon what you were fighting, what the field was like, and it wasn't like, I step up and I swing for 5 rounds. Like you actually were behind us. I remember that. Like we were in a fight, you were somehow behind us. We all moved up, and then you did that charge and just like ran up to the front and just wiped out everyone. And it's like, that was very cool. It's like, it felt like, oh my God, what are we going to do? The fighter is literally behind the entire party. And you're like, not for long. And then you had that like charge ability that you just ran right up and started to like pinball off everyone and kill them. So it was awesome.
So that is one concern I have with second edition, is that I like the mobility, but I'm worried that with the speed, that the size of a battle mat and like obstacles and stuff will no longer be that big of a hindrance. Because on Monday, and we'll eventually get to this, I also played Baricial in a delve, and at one point I just ran around the battlefield and set up a flank. And as a rogue, it's usually like I need to spend a couple of turns to get that flank and then really go to town. And that's just the how the rogue usually plays out. So the fact that I could get around the whole battlefield makes it feel like battle maps will have to get larger to get more complicated, and the size of a battle map is already convenient to the size of my table. If it starts getting larger, this might be an issue.
I actually also played the rogue, so we can compare notes.
All right.
So yeah, I played another game, and I played her as well. Yeah, I know. I guess maybe you got to go online. This actually just happened with us in Dead Suns, that we played a battle map that was 500 feet by 270 feet. And those of you who played Book 2, you know what battle map I'm talking about. And there is absolutely no way on planet Earth, I don't know how you can print that out and play that in real life. I mean, it's too big. Online it's fine. And I don't know. I mean, a lot of people are playing online now, so maybe there's going to be ways to do both, or I guess you're just going to have to buy their maps, I guess. Hopefully they'll sell them.
Well, what you do is you take your standard battle map, and then you take a yardstick, and you subdivide the squares into even tinier squares, and then you get tiny little 15 millimeter railroad crossing miniatures. They do make us a line of 15 millimeter fantasy. And then you use those. And finally you have a battle map big enough to play off of for that fight, but you can't tell who's who anymore.
Or if you want to go partially digitized, you can put the projector above the table and then just zoom out so that it fits your surface, and then you find pawns that are appropriate to whatever scale you've had to zoom back to.
Yeah. I mean, we play pretty much all online, so it's funny. I don't think of those things as much anymore, like size. I mean, I do in the back of my mind saying, oh, man, this is a huge battle map. Good thing I don't have to put this on my table, That's about it.
Param, you and I played in a delve run by Jason Mullman, which was a treat, on Monday morning. Remind me, what character were you playing?
For that one, I was playing Sela the Paladin.
Yes. What made you choose Sela for that?
I just randomly grabbed a character from the stack.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Man. So I played 3 games of 2E, and I had very specific desire. Like, I definitely wanted to play Valeros the first time I played it, because I am a fighter guy. The second time I wanted to play Kira because I wanted to play a completely different class and see if it was a different experience. And then third time I was playing a rogue, which was like kind of separate from those two. Like I really definitely wanted a certain class every single time I played. I am amazed that you were just like, oh, whatever.
Sorry. I just everybody else around the table, I wanted them to get a chance to pick because I knew this was not going to be like super end all be all for me. So I grabbed Sela. I played the first time around. I played Ezrin for that one that they took a photo for us for the website on, but we only got to play that for like 20 minutes before we realized this is going to take a lot longer than the 20 minutes they said on the sign, and then we had to go do our responsible things. And so I didn't need to play Ezrin again because I had already digested Ezrin. And then I got to play Sela and actually go through it. And Sela was super interesting because Paladin seems to have had the most drastic changes from any of the classes, except for maybe Alchemist, that also seemed to have almost a complete rewrite. Because Paladin, I mean, I felt like I was playing a Paladin character. Like, I felt like I am a protector of goodness and holy warrior. That definitely came through. But mechanically is so divorced from what we... Like, first, I didn't have Smite Evil or even Detect Evil anymore. I only had... but I still had Lay on Hands, but which was great to have at first level. For a significant amount of hit points and in a very quick action to use it, so that saved my butt on several occasions. And then she has an ability called Retributive Strike, which means that while she's if an enemy that she can reach strikes an ally, she gets to interrupt that attack and attack that enemy as a reaction, and if she takes that enemy out, it cancels the attack. And if she doesn't take that enemy out, they're going to get a stacking debuff that makes them have a penalty to attack anybody except Sela. So basically, it's a tanking mechanic for Pathfinder, and that just hasn't existed for Pathfinder before, except for those few circumstances we've talked about in the past. Like, there's the one feat that's in the wrong book. For Pathfinder First Edition. And also, she relied heavily, because she was a tanking archetype, she relied heavily on her shield, so I was also playing the shield games that you were talking about, and it literally, that became the decision between life and death, was me using that shield when the BBEG of that little mini adventure focused in on me, and I realized that I'm at single digit hit points. By the way, in Pathfinder 2e, you have double-digit hit points at first level. I was at low hit points. The BBEG was heading my way, and I knew... and the BBEG had just completely splatted our Alchemist Goblin from full hit points to...
By Sluder, who's in chat right now.
Yeah, play Sluder. Hey, Sluder! You were our goblin.
Sluder got splattered.
So completely splattered. He got crit with the +1 mace, and it just did so much damage. There was no goblin left. But you got your own, Sluder. Before he died, he rolled a crit with his acid flask on the boss. So the boss had to spend the entire fight taking acid damage, even though he had long since killed that pesky alchemist. So it was great. But I knew after watching Sluder just die that pain train was heading in my direction next. And so I was just like, heal, shield up, defense. I'm going into bunker mode now. And I had to just tank it for a round or two to survive the fight. And it felt like I was making strategic choices the entire time. Every single action, every single choice I was making was important and fun and dynamic. I intentionally put myself in harm's way early on in the fight so that I would have retribution strikes going and pull enemies onto me, and I was hoping that our healer had my back because I knew I was making myself a target, and it was a blast.
What were you fighting?
Go ahead.
It was 4 undead, 2 zombies, 2
Well,
skeletons.
hold on, actually, should we go into it? Because the delve is something they're going to be running at cons.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I was just curious, just because at no point... Oh, actually, Valoros, you did die. I forgot about that. Or you didn't die, but you were dropped during our game. I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, most of the ones we played, we weren't nearly that close to death, so yours just sounds a lot more deadly than ours. That's all.
I think that was
curious.
intentional. I think they overtuned that one because, like I said, the bad guy had a +1 weapon that first level, and in Pathfinder 2, they've said +1 weapon means +1 damage dice. So he was dealing 2d8 +4 damage a swing on every hit, and hitting usually at least twice around with that thing, and then crits were nasty.
Got it.
Now, I've been very critical about low levels in first edition, and just like that first level is almost a wash. Just get through it as quick as possible to go to second level if you don't just start at second level. And a lot of that is because you can have the right idea but not have the mechanics to support it, and also you're very squishy. This did not feel like first level characters. like I know that there's still a lot of direction you can go with them, but like I had options, I had hit points, I could be brave and know that I'll soak a certain amount of damage, but it probably won't drop me, and if it drops me, it probably won't kill me, hopefully. And when it did drop me, it didn't kill me. So like in every single second edition game that I played, and ultimately I played 3 of them or 2.5. Yeah, it did not feel like these little insignificant characters that are just like more concepts than characters at this point. You were fully fleshed out characters, and you could do the things those characters should be doing, those classes, right off the start.
Yeah, I mean, I played Ezreal, which I purposely wanted to see because that would probably be the most complex class. And traditionally, wizards at first level talk about squishy. I mean, you know, they're the most delicate around, and he felt pretty solid. And there was 2 full pages of options at first level. There was a lot you can do. And then on top of that, casting the spells, whether you used 1, 2, or 3 actions, they work differently. So at first level, it felt like I had 20 actions or different types of actions I could take, which was fantastic. And I did get hit and didn't die, which is also fantastic. So,
Right. But now, did you feel like you should have died being such an inexperienced wizard? Like, was there your survivability breaking the fantasy of the class?
Lord, no. Because we were also fighting. Well, we were also fighting, I think, appropriately leveled monsters, if you remember. Like, we weren't. There was one. Remember that big spider? There was one very scary monster, and I went.
One-eyed monster.
Yeah, and it was right, and it was like attacking everyone at once, and that's when I went as far away as possible and just unleashed 3 magic missiles at that thing over and over again, and that's how you would play it. I mean, you know, I was in the back, I wasn't stupid, and on top of that, if I ever did get it up in the front, you had the cantrip shield, which takes 5 hit points of damage automatically just for 1 round. So I felt like I always had options, which was nice.
Corin flies in chat. Corin, you've been extremely active and helpful with your questions, so thank you for that. They are asking, was there anything about the playtest that you didn't like? Param, you want to start?
You go first while the dogs calm down.
Okay, yeah, I hear the dog barking. So, honestly, from the playing of it, no. The one thing I continue to be worried about second edition is the building of the characters, because I like options not just at the table, but also in the books, and it really does feel like these are the options that are going to be tied to this class, and if you have a really cool concept that it's like, this feat would be perfect for that concept, but everything else about this concept says barbarian, but that feat is a fighter feat, then you're out of luck. Like, that's something that constantly happens to me with traits, because traits are very often keyed to specific regions and whatnot. And so it's like, if I want to be a freed slave, but I don't want to be a freed slave halfling, then I can't take the freed slave trait. That's the kind of thing that gets frustrating in a first edition build, whereas otherwise first edition building is extremely loose. Second edition building, and I did not build a character. This is just from what I am seeing of how these characters were built and from certain conversations. That is my main fear about second edition, or at least the playtest version of it. Stephen?
Believe it or not, the one thing that I was a little worried about is shields. Even though we've been talking about how great they are, I don't want this to become Game of Shields, where everyone's walking around with shields. And they were talking about that because the way it works is like your shield will take a certain amount of hit points of damage and then it becomes broken. And then after, it can take another same amount of hit point damage and then it's destroyed. And then you're like, aha, I pull out my second shield. And like, they actually talked about that. They're like, oh yeah, you're walking around with like 10 shields. I'm like, I don't want to have a game where everyone's walking around with 10 shields. So I just want to be careful that it doesn't become so dependent on this shield mechanic. And I was a little worried about that. I'll be honest. I want to, save my judgment until I see the final product. But it did worry me that, it looks like almost anyone could use a shield. Hopefully that's balanced out that, like, well, yeah, you have a shield, but you can only use one-handed weapons. But if you want to use the two-handed weapons, they are way better, and you can't use a shield. There has to be some, especially for the fighters, some reason why you won't. The paladin, I think, gets a free pass because they're a tank. That's okay. But I don't want it to be, oh, the wizard has a shield, oh, and the rogue has a shield, and the alchemist has a shield. It's like, ugh, that I'm a little worried about. But other
we didn't see any two-handed weapons in any of the playtest characters, did we?
We did not. I did not see any two-handed weapons ever. And how I think about it.
Yeah. You got Mauricial, who was a two-weapon fighter. Valeros had a dagger, so he could do two-weapon fighting. But no, I wonder if that was intentional or coincidence.
I'm not sure actually. Now I think about it, I didn't really notice it until you mentioned it, but that was maybe the only thing. And also, obviously, we only saw level 1 and level 2 characters. It's easy. I don't say it's easy, but there was a lot of options at level 1, level 2, which is great. But I'm curious to see what they're going to be like at level 5 or 10 or 15. It's like, am I going to literally be walking around with a binder because there's so many options? So, again, I mean, I reserve judgment, but so far it felt awesome. The combat was really crunchy. It felt like Pathfinder. It was like totally different, and yet it felt exactly like Pathfinder. And every class felt totally different, which was the best part.
Yeah, that was a concern I had going into it. I didn't want my warrior to feel like a spellcaster. Like, I didn't want limited number of certain option that just feels like I'm casting the sword spell. And it's not. It's not at all. And even playing Valeros versus Mauricio, very different experiences. Mauricio felt very lithe, very springy. And a lot of the options that you had to build towards, like spring attack, like a disjointed charge, things that were complicated to achieve in first edition, are basically baked into the core rules in second edition, and that's impressive, surprising, and completely changes the feel.
And can we talk about how much I'm glad attack of opportunities are rare in second edition? Because in first edition, the threat of attack of opportunities have made combats these static, glued into position fights. And Mauricio felt free to move around the fight. You were able to shift around easy enough. Repositioning from both the bad guys and the good guys was common. And there was a little repercussion unless Valros was around and he actually had the attack of opportunity reaction. But I liked that mobility was a thing again, because one of the things I don't like about Pathfinder First Edition is that at some arbitrary line between you and the bad guys, the battle line gets drawn, and then nobody moves more than 5 feet for the rest of the hour.
Yeah. My only downside with that was, so the way it works now is that no one has attacks of opportunity. It's actually, whether it's a feat or a class option, like Valeros had it, and I think that was it. I don't know if the Paladin had it, but the problem was, at least in our game, everyone was really scared to go next to the monsters because they're like, do they have it? I don't know. Do you? Like, you go in front of the monster. Like, oh, I'm not going in front of the monster. You go in front of the monster. So it was this game of chicken of like, who's going to run by the monster? And then finally someone's like, fine, I'm going to do it. And they run by the monster. And we all look at the GM and he's like, oh, nothing happened. So we're like, okay, no attack of opportunity. I presume, through knowledge checks and so forth, you'll be able to mitigate that. But I also don't want that to become the running theme of every game of like, does he or doesn't he have attack of opportunity? So I have a feeling, just to be devil's advocate on that.
I have a feeling it's going to be, what are his reactions? So it's going to be similar to what you described, but not attack of opportunity specifically, just like, when I do something, what is about to hit me?
Yes. Yeah. I see that. But it was funny to see everyone like very scared to go next to them because we just didn't know. We're like, okay, let's see what happens. And it's like, fighter, you go in front of him. It's like, I'm not going to go in front of him.
Well, there were also a lot of weird monsters in that adventure. Like the wolves I'll go in front of, but I don't know about this spider.
Oh, that spider was nasty. And then it had a great attack. It would just run over everyone, and everyone ran over it did damage to. That's why I ran away. I'm like, oh man, I'm getting out of here.
And I just got to say, I was impressed that Luis converted an entire adventure path to second edition just as a thought experiment, and we were reaping the benefit of it. And so that's not a monster we will ever see in Pathfinder, but he did convert it pretty quickly. And as someone that's fought it in 2 different editions now, did it feel like the same monster, even if it played differently? No,
it was totally. Well, he told me though. Remember that spider we're talking about specifically? He changed it, and if you remember, he said he added that new ability where it kind of ran over everyone. So he cheated on that one. But as for the swarms, I know he did. The swarms felt exactly the same. The wolves felt exactly the same. What else did we fight? Was it undead? I forgot what all the other monsters felt exactly the same. Poison was kind of nasty. And what else? An underwater was a lot easier. That was you were the one who was in the water.
Yeah.
So it was like
I was
Cake?
swimming. It was fine. I think I left my shield behind just for a little more mobility. I don't even know if I had to mechanically, but it just seemed
Right.
like the logical thing to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was swimming around. I think the paladin was walking along the bottom of a
Yes.
flooded room,
Yes, he
attacking
did.
the same monster from underneath. And
Yes.
as someone who's played more more first edition water combats than I care for, just having simplified water, like maybe it was a little too simplified, maybe it should have been a little more complicated. We were a little too free in what we could do, but at least the rules were freeing. We as players didn't feel like we were drowning in rules.
Well, I didn't go in that water. I was waiting for you guys. I was waiting. Yeah, he did the Highlander where he was walking on the bottom. You were swimming around, and then you pulled the plug and drained the water, which was genius. I didn't even know you could do that because when I ran it, everyone just stayed in the water the whole time, and it was horrible. And it's darkness too. It was darkness and water, so it was extra fun.
I had another thing to say, but it's gone.
The other thing I liked a lot, which I don't know if you guys touched on as much, was like the skill system. Is that you automatically got a point in all of the skills that you, I guess, are invested in by your level. So you don't have to waste putting in a skill in everyone, putting a point in all your skills constantly. So a lot of things were keyed towards your level, which, I can see people saying, oh, well, it's automatic. It's almost like a video game. But you know what? How many times have you played a game of Pathfinder or Starfinder where you're automatically putting points into the same skills level after level after level? And that was nice. There was a lot of I think quality of life issues that they put into the game, quite frankly.
Yeah, I've been hesitant with this new skill system because it reminded me so much of the alpha playtest version of the Pathfinder skills, and I did not care for that then. The only thing that really won me over about this was that Sela has thieving skills because of her background as a thief, and that really brought that character to life. It brought the personality to the personality to the character, and separated her personality from just being a generic paladin. And so that shows just how powerful having these keyed to your level skills can be, because it's not just here's your paladin class level or your class skills, that's what you're stuck with. There are other options that will give you access to more skills, and what skills you are good at will help define you as a character more than it did in first edition.
Mm-hmm.
I remember what I was going to say, the persistent damage thing. So that's the same with poison,
yeah.
and that is what killed the BBEG in the Delve with Jason Bowman. The idea that it is a flat roll with a DC that's not keyed to anything. So if you need a 20 for it, it's not a 20, or it's not a D20 roll plus your dex modifier to get that 20, or your fort save or anything. It's just, you've got acid on you, you need a 20. And I don't like that. Like, it feels like a first level commoner and a 20th level epic character will have just as much difficulty getting this acid off their face, and that doesn't seem right.
Yeah, the persistent damage rules seemed really a little OP, because I think, what was it, you had to roll a natural 20, and you did it automatically at the end of every round to get rid of it, or you can spend one action and you needed a DC 15. So you can still, if you used all three actions trying to get rid of it, you're still going to fail a quarter of the time. So, that seemed a little harsh. Hopefully that's adjusted, but I agree, that seemed really... Now, at the time, we was only doing 1 or 2 points of damage, but if that persistent item is on you as a player, that is going to get really annoying very quickly, especially if you have to make a DC 15 roll every time on a D20. And it's flat. There's no pluses or minuses. Maybe some of the classes add, maybe where there's things that we're not seeing, like in Starfinder, you have the envoy who can change a lot of those roles. Maybe there's something similar that we haven't seen yet, but that did seem really harsh.
One thing that was a nice touch was that another character could do that role for you as one of their actions. Mm-hmm. So that's good, and it makes sense then if the cleric will have some ability that makes them better at clearing off persistent damage. Mm-hmm. I don't like the idea that it's unrelated to who you are, your ability to deal with this stuff, other than a specific class feature. It feels like there should be something related to your ability scores or your level to help with that.
Yeah, I mean, that was we barely saw that, so again, I kind of reserve judgment on that because I only saw it like once or twice.
Well, I saw we had the poison that we were all worried about in our game, and then in the Delve, it killed the BBEG because Sluder acid bombed the guy, got a crit, and then that crit just kept critting on him because he couldn't clear off the acid from his face, and so he killed him Sluter killed the BBEG after Sluter was dead for at least a round.
Way more than one round. He was dead
Yeah.
for several rounds.
I mean, they did say, and I've been listening, obviously to all the talks and, just catching up on everything. This is a playtest.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And they are going to be taking a lot of notes. And if a lot of people complain about this, I'm quite confident they're going to fix it before the release of the final rules. So.
And also, the way persistent damage works is one of those D-list considerations when you're developing a game. This is likely one of the things that is still in the development works.
Yes. I mean,
one random note that I just appreciated was that Acid Splash does splash damage.
Yeah, I found that out by accident and hit my rogue with it. It's like, Acid Splash at the zombie.
Cantrip.
Huh?
Or actually, I guess it made it a cantrip you had to deal with because you knew that you couldn't splash near your friends. But it is something that, in first edition, a lot of people play Acid Splash, and then they're like, what do you mean it doesn't do splash damage? It's Acid Splash. And it's like, it's a dash of acid, really. It's not you're not splashing acid. Well, now you are, because it's a thing that everyone gets wrong the first time, so now it's more keyed into people's instincts for how that spell should work, based on its name.
So now we all get the opportunity.
That kind of change to the game.
So now we all get the opportunity to get it wrong again.
Oh, I'm not going to get it wrong. I love spells that damage the PCs. That's like my favorite one.
P-Fellow 1 is talking about how channeling was not an either-or. It was just how many actions you're willing to put into it. That's true, but I got to say that of the three characters I played, Kira was easily the one I enjoyed playing the least because it felt like so much of her abilities required multiple actions, and she was slow. And so I just constantly felt like I was trailing behind. And the few times where it was like, channeling would be the perfect thing to do in this opportunity, or in this situation, if only I was 10 feet closer, or if only, like, I could move and then hope the situation doesn't change and I'll channel next turn. It was just like so much long-term planning to use expendable resources. And it was just, I did not enjoy that particular character. But that's okay, because I usually don't enjoy first edition clerics. So that... It probably means the cleric works just fine the way it's supposed to, and it's just not for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what about some of the spells they did show, like at the banquet? I'll tell you, the dinosaur form, that alone seemed worth it. I was actually, if you zoom in, there's a couple of other spells in there, like the disintegration and others that were there. Again, the spells I like the spells because they actually had multiple, like the healing that we just talked about, or magic missile. It was not like, oh, you cast a spell and that's it. It was like you can use the spell, and depending on how many actions, and there was even ways to empower them, that you can change the spell. Like you can make the spell do an AoE and make the AoE bigger, or you can actually add more damage dice. And that was nice. Like, it's like, wow, you can actually modify the spells at first level, and in little ways, and I can only imagine that getting crazier and crazier as they level up.
Yeah,
actually, let's talk about... Oh, go ahead, Parm.
Yeah, Ezrin had metamagic as one of his class feats, so he had metamagic widen, so he could spend an extra action to add metamagic to one of his area spells, and depending on the area, either made it longer if it was a ray, or wider if it was an arc, and all kinds of neat things like that. Or bigger if it was a splash. And to finally see metamagic used like that, especially in this 3-action system, means that it's probably going to get used a lot more. Whereas metamagic in first edition, usually it's not used a whole lot except for rods, because it's so costly to put it on your spells the default way. Either you're using up really high level spell slots for low level spells, or you're taking extra actions to cast when actions are life in Pathfinder first edition. So everybody just gets the metamagic rods to do that for them. And now it seems like, actually, no, you might actually use a metamagic feat. You might actually have a reason to take it again.
Clearly, you've never played with Corey, someone from my group who is constantly doing metamagic spells.
Well, I'm a good wizard.
Okay. He makes effective, powerful characters.
So wait, Ryan, how did you like the rogue? Like you said,
I like
it
the
sounded
rogue a
like
lot.
you were playing it a little differently than I was.
I liked the mobility. I liked the stealth. I liked stealth for initiative. That's a really clever way of doing it. And I liked that my weapons, one of them was versatile, so I could use it for piercing or slashing. And one of them was a disarm weapon. So like the weapon that I was attacking with, and I could also throw the dagger at range. I felt that was the options for that class. Usually for a rogue, I would look for the sneak attack as quick as possible. But in this one encounter that had a bad guy with a magic weapon, and I had a weapon that was keyed to disarm somebody, I was like, well, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to sneak around while he's worried about other people. I'm going to try and disarm him. It didn't work out, but it's nice that, because combat maneuvers are kind of a fighter's game in first edition because it's tied to your strength, whereas now it seems to be tied to it looks at the combat maneuver and it says who should be good at that, and someone with a rapier disarming somebody makes a whole lot of sense. So that was the main thing that I liked about her, and it wasn't hard to get a sneak attack in, so I could set it up all in one round and deliver a sneak attack, which was nice. I'm used to playing rogues as thinking 2 rounds ahead.
Yeah, I played a game with Jason Keeley. He was our GM, and I also played the rogue, and we had a very fun encounter. We were in an alley, so I ran up the wall onto the roof, and everyone else was fighting, and you get the sneak attack damage the first round automatically. So I jumped off the roof, jumped onto someone, hit them, did the sneak attack, and killed them. And it felt very roguey. And it was natural. It wasn't a million rolls to figure out, okay, what's your falling and what's your acrobat. It just happened. And then the other thing that was nice that I did a lot was that, so for any of the other classes, if you do 2 attacks, you get a -5 for each attack. And for the second attack, and then -10 for the third attack. So it's nothing, then -5, then -10. But for the rogue, it's -4 and -8. So I was doing a lot of multiple attacks and getting them in. She felt very fast, and I'm sure that accelerates as she levels up. She felt very quick, which was nice.
So when you left off,
I did forget about that. That was something that I liked in the rules. I didn't get to see it play out because in that particular delve, you fight a bunch of mooks. And so I would set up, and it's like, all right, and now I've got some long-term plans to do multiple attacks next round. And then, the guy was dead, and I had to move around some more. So I didn't get the multiple attacks off that I was planning for, but that's fine. I like being able to make plans, even if I have to change my plans when things change.
What were we saying, Param?
I was like, so when you jumped off the roof to stab the guy, did the Assassin's Creed Eagle scream?
Yes, Jason actually did that for me. He's quite a good GM, I'll tell you.
Excellent.
That's actually a nice way to transition into Starfinder, because Jason Keeley ran you in a game as well.
Yeah, that was the first official event I had at PaizoCon, was getting to play in Jason Keeley's Skittershot game, which is going to be the free RPG Day module to be released this year. So I got to play it early, and I got to play it under the author, Jason Keeley, and it was so much fun. I mean, Skittermanders has become the mascot of the Starfinder right now, and so it was nice to see that they gave them their due here. They made a really quick pivot for what I was guessing was probably going to be Space Goblins for Free RPG Day. And it started off just like We Be Goblins did. So we got 10 facts about Skittermanders. And it very clearly defined that Skittermanders are not space goblins. They are a completely distinct culture and species. And I still hold, even after playing this and reading the facts about the Skittermanders, that they are opposite goblins. That's the best way I've been able to figure it. So he was a fantastic GM to play under. I'm sure you agree with me on that one, Stephen.
Yeah, he's amazing.
And it's a really cool adventure. And I was so glad that it was like our characters were like 2nd or 3rd level, so we weren't 1st level characters. And I'm so used to these little demo games being 1st level again. And it was refreshing, especially in Starfinder, to not be 1st level and playing competent Skittermanders who, due to our nature, we were extremely helpful. It went rather uniquely because of how Jason Keeley reacted to us when we were playing. This will go different for other people's games. But because we have to be super helpful, often to the point that they don't want it, that help, especially since the the Skittermanders, as the adventure opens up, all report to the same Vesk officer who runs the ship as the captain. And so he was like, at the beginning of it up, he's like, okay, I'm going to go over this ship and take care of the plot. That's not what he said, but I don't want to spoil it. I'm going to go. I'm going to go do plot reasons, and while I'm gone, don't improve the ship. And then we're like, but we want to help. He's like, no helping. Leave everything the same. And then all of us looked at each other and were like, it will all be the same. We will make this the most same ship that he's ever been. And so it became the whole adventure became like we would walk into the room and like, this is not the way it was supposed to be, right? So no, we must make it same now. And then we were just like propping things up. If we fought a bunch of robots in a room, we would put all the piles in the general shape of the robot we found it in back where it belonged. About halfway through the adventure, they overcome, for reasons I won't spoil, the intercom says that there are pets loose in the facility that need to be contained. So we ran back to a room where there were pet carriers, and we're dragging around this giant pet carrier the whole time going, we have to find these missing pets. They must be scared. They need to go back to their owners. And so every monster and alien we fought from there on out, we were like, this might be the pet, but in the pet carrier.
So there's obviously going to be a lot of comparisons between Skittershot and the Weeby Goblin series. One of the strengths of the Weeby Goblin series is the well-defined characters. Because you're not just playing goblins, you're playing Poog, you're playing Rita, however you want to pronounce it. Does Skittershot have well-defined characters as well?
They do. Now, I'm not super familiar with the other characters, and because it's Starfinder, they have alien names, so I don't remember my alien name. I'm really bad with Starfinder names. I hate this. It's just like it's a billion apostrophes and 18 syllables that all sound like one. But, well, that was one of our trivia answers that we obviously did during the trivia contest we'll talk about later.
We'll get to the trivia contest in a few minutes.
But as far as they were described, yes, we had like the obvious protective fighter Skittermander, and all of them had like this one obsession, because each Skittermander was one of the 10 things, each Skittermander adopts an obsession that they want to learn the most about as possible. And so mine was astronomy, so it was all like constellations, so no matter what, I had to like obsess over constellations and compare it to like poetry. It was a really weird thing, but they were all like super well defined of this is about this particular Skittermander, and they all felt distinctly like we weren't just all carbon clones of each other. We had distinct personalities, and they were very different.
Good. Very good.
Though I will admit, none of them stand out as much as Rita, Big Bad, and Poog.
And Mogmerch. Anna B. Meyer, we're just going to quickly go to a question in chat. Any news on base attack bonus progression in Pathfinder 2nd Edition? So in the middle of the game that Luis was running, he had us level up our characters, and we didn't get to level the characters. He actually very cleverly printed the characters back to back and put them in his plastic sleeve, so that when they were laid out the way he did it, it was first level in the front, first level in the back, and then you would switch and it would be second level in the front, second level in the back. And I can tell you that I was definitely hitting, or my base attack bonus went up, or my two hit went up as Valoros in second level. I couldn't tell you the math, and we weren't allowed to take pictures. We were allowed to take notes, but honestly, I was engaged in the game, so I didn't actually think to do that. So your base stack progression will go up. Just I don't have any details about how.
This is the blog. Base attack progression is just like all the progressions. You're adding your level to every d20 roll. But the different classes have different weapon proficiencies that map just the same to the skill proficiencies. So the martial classes will have higher initial, and then they will grow faster in their weapons, which will add +1, then +2, then finally +3 on top of that level. And if you're untrained, it's -1. So you will see a variance in the stats, pretty similar to what the variance would be at mid-level Pathfinder, no matter what level you're at. But the base calculation is level plus proficiency bonus is your base attack.
That's where expert, legendary, that stuff comes in?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it all sounds familiar now. We were talking about Starfinder. I did not get to play much Starfinder, So the delves. We'll just get this out of the way now. The delves had a big sign that says, "Can you survive 20 minutes in this delve?" And in the past, the delve was really just like you sit at the table. It's like, here's a very vague setup, and now a crazy combat starts. In this case, the delves all had actual role playing. They had multiple levels to it, and none of them were 20 minutes. We sat down once with an hour before our first seminar, and it was like, we've got 20 minutes to run a Starfinder delve. I will play Starfinder with you, Param. This will be one of my first Starfinder experiences. And like 40 minutes into it, we're in the second round of combat, and it's like, well, now I have to go. Yes, we survived 20 minutes of the delve, but I feel lied to by that sign.
Yeah.
And then basically the same thing happened with the second edition delve, where the first time that we sat down to play it, we had 40 minutes. We had more than the 20 minutes we were asked to have, and we had to leave fairly early on to go to some other obligation. So I am glad that we actually set the time out on the Monday morning, and we coordinated with Jason Bowman to make sure that we had time for that full delve experience. Although, if we have time, we'll talk about how that affected my return travel plans.
Who is your GM?
So for the Starfinder was Amanda Hammond-Coons. For the first delve, was it Mark Seifter?
Yes.
Oh, okay. They're both too nice. That's why.
I don't think that there was any emphasis placed on the GMs to run these things in 20 minutes. Those signs just should not have been there. Right. I blame the signs, not our GMs.
Yeah, and the last one was Jason Bowman, and he was not too nice. He was dead set on killing us, and it still lasted the hour. It was like the delves this time were like quests from Pathfinder Society. If you're used to a quest series, where the quests are usually like an hour long and you run 4 or 5 of them in a session, if you're going to do the whole lineup.
So at PAX Unplugged, I played my first Starfinder quest, and it was like an off-the-books thing. So I played the Technomancer. No, sorry, I played the Mystic and the Solarian. Playing both characters at once. This time I played the Technomancer, and even though we only got kind of a sample of those characters, it did convince me that the Technomancer was the character that I want, or the class I want to play for my first character. So at one point, you and I had half an hour, and we were hanging out at the Hero Lab booth, Param, and I rolled up my first Starfinder character. It is an android Technomancer who worships Pharasma. So as Param put it, it is a goth android.
Is that
its name is Shudder. I like that Shudder is a loaded word that means a lot of different things, in different situations, and it feels like the Technomancer is that kind of character. So I don't know when I will play this. It is Starfinder Society legal, and it is ready to go whenever we want. In fact, second, I'm sorry, I should have been better prepared. At one point, Param and I sat down to the Reaper paint and take, and I made a thing that I am having trouble finding, but it should be no surprise that I am going to talk about painting up my android. I have my first Starfinder character painted and everything and ready to go.
We got to play with you because Linda, she wants to play with you in one of our games. I'll GM you. It'll be your first Starfinder game. I won't choose one too hard, and because Linda was begging to play with you on Starfinder.
I would love to play with Linda. Remind me to give my Linda anecdote at the end of it. I cannot find my miniature. I am sad.
No.
I'm sure I made it home.
Yeah, the Technomancer doesn't get as much love because the Mystic is definitely, of the two spellcasters, the Mystic is probably a little bit more powerful, and plus it can heal. But I really like the Technomancer. I actually, I play a Technomancer myself, and I think it's a fantastic, because they can both fight and cast, magic. So I really enjoy them.
Yeah, I think the Technomancer is going to be a class that gets better with a few more books with some spells in it to differentiate itself. Because right now it plays like an illusionist mixed with the buffy parts of Bard, and then like and it's a weird mix. It's not Space Wizard. It's like I'm kind of Space Magus, but I'm also kind of Space Illusion Bard. And you're not, and the Mystic is like, no, I'm the Space Wizard and the Space Cleric.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, since there's only 2 of them, the Mystic definitely is getting a little bit more love than the Technomancer. But as you said, just give it another book or 2, and I think they're going to even themselves out pretty quickly.
Yeah. I am looking at all the pockets I just looked at because I want to find my miniature. Where did I put that thing?
Oh well.
Kids are probably playing with it. It's probably gone.
I think I put it with the Pathfinder Battles miniatures that I got from my swag bag.
Now, while Brian searches furiously for his miniature, did you get any Starfinder in? I know the answer, but did you get any more Starfinder in, Stephen?
Yes, I actually did. I never, ever, ever get to play. And I actually said this in my podcast. I actually don't like playing characters. I'm one of those people who's like born and bred as a GM, and I love to GM. But I did get to play a bit, and I got to play with my friends. We played, was it 1-12, which is repeatable, and it's built using random tables, so every time you play it, it's different. And we had a great time because that's supposed to be one of the easiest adventures, and we all almost got totally killed. And I actually spoke to the author, and he was so happy that we all almost died. He's like, "Oh, that's great." In fact, there was a point in where, because it's so funny, they don't call it rope in Starfinder. They call it like titanium cable. So we got to a bridge over a chasm, and it's supposed to be, oh, you just use your rope and you repair the bridge. And it's like, who has rope? And no one had rope. So none of us could repair the bridge. And the GM spent a good 15 minutes and the rest of the con talking to everyone saying, who doesn't bring rope? I can't believe you guys didn't bring rope. And we're like, so the very first thing we did was we all bought rope after that adventure, because it's not called rope, it's called titanium cable. So, and then I fell off the bridge. And then because I was a technomancer, I did get to use my flight and hover back up. He loved it. The GM was having a great time. And every sneak attack we lost, we got, it was total chaos. It was a lot of fun. And I played that one. What else did I play? Oh, I did play